Now, I've already touched on the power of humor and play to help us recognize and reward our employees, but what about the power of humor to help reward ourselves in the face of stress, to help pull ourselves out of the dungeon? Do you know it's been shown in some situations with search and rescue dogs that are dealing with a huge disaster where all the dogs are doing are finding dead bodies, that the dogs will get so demoralized sometimes, they'll quit working. They'll go sit down. They'll go, "This job is horrible. You go try it for a while." So they figured out to reward the dog for their stress by burying a live member of the search and rescue team in the avalanche, in the rubble, so that the dog keeps finding a new person and stays motivated. So I want to suggest that if it works with dogs, it works with people, and it does in all sorts of situations. And I mean this in a few different contexts. First of all, just think about those times at work when maybe you have a really, really busy, crazy season in your workplace. Maybe it's a couple months, maybe it's a month where it's just, this is our crazy, everybody's putting in long hours, or everyone's finishing working on a big project where you have this looming deadline and people are putting in overtime and they're exhausted and they're stressed. Then I want to remind you of the importance of making sure, again, you reward people for those stressful periods, that you build in some milestone celebrations, but especially you build in a big fun celebration at the end of those periods to reward people for those stressful times. We could also apply this concept to our employees who are dealing with stressful situations. We can literally reward them for their stress. For example, a bank where the manager was noticing that the tellers were pretending to disappear behind the counter when an obnoxious regular would come into the bank. So he started a customer from hell reward program. Now, he didn't advertise this to the customers, of course, because context matters when we deliver humor like this. But behind the scenes, the way it worked was whoever had to deal with the most obnoxious customer of the week would get a small reward from the bank. And he said, problem solved within a week. Now the tellers were fighting with each other to serve the most obnoxious regular coming into the bank. Another simple example, I had a client who had an office right next to the train tracks. Every time a train would blast by, the whole building would shake. It was noisy always, just one of those little irritants. But they helped minimize the irritant by putting a big barrel of everyone's favorite chocolate treats in the middle of the office. But the way it worked was you were only allowed a chocolate treat when a train went by. So now, instead of being a source of stress, everyone was going, "Where is the train? What's going on?" There were way more trains before, I'm sure. So it helped to deal with the stress in a playful, fun way. So if you get creative, there's all sorts of ways you can do that. It also helps with this issue, again, the topic of open and honest communication. There was a study done of hospitals in a region of the United States where they came up with this interesting finding where they found that the hospitals that had, through all sorts of metrics, the highest reported culture and most effective leaders also had more mistakes being reported. And they thought, well, this is kind of an odd finding. More effective leadership leads to more mistakes? No. Of course, what they were finding when they dug a little deeper was that more effective leadership led to more honest and open communication and more honest and open reporting of those mistakes because there was more trust. So this applies to trying to build a safety culture. Really important that people report the near misses as much as they report the minor incidents that happen. You know this if you have a strong safety culture. So rewarding people for speaking up in fun ways can also help minimize the stress associated with speaking up, but it can also turn it into just a fun reward. I worked in one office, for example, where we had the official, yes, Bonehead Play of the Month award. Now, it doesn't exactly build the old team spirit to start nominating each other as to who should win the Bonehead Play of the Month. You had to nominate yourself. And the way it worked was once a month on a Friday afternoon, took like 5 minutes, 10 minutes max. Anyone who nominated themselves had to present their case of something they did that was really embarrassing or stupid or stressful that caused them a little bit of frustration. And whoever had the biggest bonehead play of the month got a small prize. So we made it fun to admit our mistakes because we wanted to learn from each other's mistakes. So there's all sorts of ways you can do this with your employees, with yourself, and also with your customers if you get creative. Back to Barney's Motel, for example. He was getting tired of people complaining about flies in the motel room during the summer. So he instituted what I'm pretty sure is Canada's very first fly bounty. 10 cents per fly, dead or alive, that you bring to the front counter. He put signs up in the motel rooms with a fly swatter next to it. When he did that, people stopped complaining, because he made it fun and he literally rewarded them for something that was causing them stress. So get creative, get playful with this, and figure out some fun ways, some playful ways you can reward your team for those things that cause ongoing stress at work. Maybe it's instituting a worst day at work award once a month, or the worst commute to work award. There's no end of things that you can come up with as fun rewards.